All right, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Happy last day of May. Hopefully, you're not hungover and you're filled with barbecue from a Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully, you took a minute to realize what that day is all about and realize that freedom isn't free, and we should be thankful to all of those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. On that note, good morning, Michael. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm under caffeinated, but all right.
Typical restarting back from a vacation weekend. Today, we are going to start off by talking about layers. And we talked a little bit before this, and we were thinking that the best way is the source of layers, I would say, would be starting from the good old Autodesk AutoCAD, and then going into review with those layers and then adding maybe layers later on.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a few things with layers, creating them from AutoCAD or something like that. And then we'll get into maybe document comparison and show those layers. We got a few different things. This definitely will not take the whole session.
Yes.
And every time I say that, it ends up taking the whole session. But if you've got questions related to anything Bluebeam Review, type them in the chat, put them down there in the YouTube comments. Those will get ported over to us, and we're going to answer some of those questions as we go. So.
And layers. If not, I think what we could do is I could bring up some of the surveys and we can go through some of those questions.
There you go.
If no one asks, which we hope they do. But we have a plan.
We've got a plan.
Okay.
And my plan is to start sharing my screen, and we're going to start off here in AutoCAD 2023, the brand new fancy stuff. And I just opened up a sample drawing, mainly because I like going through these. Some of these are like 20 years old, and they haven't changed much. Oh, look at that. Weird date format. Is that 2015 or is that 2006? Anyway, it's an old drawing. I didn't create it. I know nothing about it other than it was on the home screen here in AutoCAD. So I opened it up because it has layers in it. And I want to use layers to do things. So if you haven't seen AutoCAD before, layers are how we're going to organize our information, right? So stairs here are going to be on one layer, and then this bathroom fixture is going to be on another layer. Hopefully, these callouts are on a different layer. And those are all organized here, right? So if I turn things off or if I freeze them, that will change the color or display. So if I turn it off or freeze it, it will turn it off so you can't see it. Or if I freeze it, it will turn it off so you can't free it or change it. But if I change a color of a layer, that will affect everything that's drawn on that layer, right? So this comes really, really handy to sort of filter out our information. And what we want to be able to do is print a PDF, but also still have access to our layers. Now, we will be able to turn things off. We'll be able to manipulate them a little bit. But how do we get these over to review? Now, since I installed AutoCAD 2023 after I installed Bluebeam Review 20, the add-in here doesn't appear. Right?
But it goes to output, right?
I don't have. I have to reinstall Bluebeam Review in order for it to show up. Right, but that's okay because I can still print. And when I go to print, here I'll zoom out to my layout. And I will print this.
And you'll see if the add-in is still on, though.
Yeah, I still have a Bluebeam PDF plot driver here. And this is here because it's installed with Windows, right? So whenever you install a Bluebeam Review product, it's going to automatically default to your list of printers. Same as if I were to install, my HP OfficeJet down the hall or a Canon printer or any other printer. That's how this is going to appear. So I can technically print that and it will give me a nice PDF. However, if I want to use my layers from AutoCAD in Review, I don't want to use this, which is kind of curious. So take a look at this. Before I spend the time to set up my paper sizes and everything, if I go here to Bluebeam PDF, notice there's nothing down here. I got this big empty space. But if I go over here to dwg2pdf.pc3, this is a one that comes with AutoCAD. Now I have this new button here called PDF Options. right? So I scrolled down, I went to DWG to PDF.PC3. And with this comes that PDF options button. And when I select this, now I have the ability to change some of my information. What vector quality do I want? 600, I can go up, crank it up higher. Again, higher DPI is going to be a higher file size. 600 will be fine for this. Raster image quality, I don't have any in here, thankfully. Merge control, I like to do lines overwrite. But down here in the bottom, all three of these are checked by default. Include layer information, or include hyperlinks, and create bookmarks. Capture fonts used in the drawing. Now, with this, Revu doesn't like fonts that are not true type. It will display whatever AutoCAD fonts come over here, but I won't be able to edit them. This is something that pops up a lot with our support, where people can edit text in one PDF, but they can't edit somewhere else. It could be because it's not a true type font. So this will bring it over, but it won't allow that editing. Right. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK here, and then I'm going to configure this nightmare drawing. Oh, we've got metric. I might need some metric help here, but let's see. Let's go back and just do layout. What size paper do I think this is supposed to be?
Is it because this was just created?
Yeah, it's a sample drawing, so I don't know where it came from, but obviously it came from the land of metric. So let's see if I just try to put it on a RHD.
So you're just taking a guess, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see what it looks like. Good enough, right? It's not embrace the metric. That'll work for my purpose, right?
See. Yeah.
Ideally, I'd want it centered so my margin's on the other side, but I'm just going to hit OK, right? So my plot style table, we'll put it on monochrome. That's the one I want. Remember, my PDF options were set, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. This is going to print. I'm going to drop this on my good old desktop, and there we go. Ooh, it's going to automatically open up in Revu. And ta-da. All right, there we go. So here's my same print from AutoCAD. Vector, right? So it looks all good, and I can zoom out. Now, moment of truth. If I pull up my layers panel, so I'm in my Revu advanced profile, which means my layers panel is going to be over here on the left side. It's the fourth one down in the default setting, and I'll pull that up, and there are all of my layers. So these are all the same layers that came over from AutoCAD, right? Same ones we see here that do not follow a CAD standard, and that makes me very sad. But there's layers all the same, right? I'm going to go ahead and dismiss AutoCAD. I'm not going to save anything. I'll go back here into Revu, and I have all of my layers. So I printed this one layout. Let's zoom in and start seeing if we can turn things on and off. So if I click grid, oh, these are bad.
Yeah.
There's some stuff over here. So
it is from the out of the box.
This is out of the box. This is going to hurt my feelings a whole lot. So those of us who have done any sort of CAD instruction or mentorship or helped a newbie, we should probably be pretty upset here, because there's some bad CAD going on, but that's all the same. It works well for the whole demonstration. So I've got a number of layers here. You can see how they affect things. If I pull over this panel a little bit more, there are other options: lock, print, and export. So you can see by default, nothing when it comes over is locked, and everything is set to print, and everything is set to export. You can change that. This can cause all sorts of headaches if you were trying to really make somebody's life difficult. Why you couldn't print certain things if you wanted them. AutoCAD by default usually comes with a layer called def points, which does not print, and you cannot make it print. That did not come over here, but you wouldn't see it in a PDF anyway.
So some questions from David. Does the DWG to PDF .pc3 provide a better quality PDF than just printing to Bluebeam. So I guess what we need to talk about is the International Standard Organization for Coding PDFs. Typically, majority of solutions follow that standard. What it comes down to for writing PDFs is how the viewports are interpreted and file size for those viewports. And are they coded as GIFs or GIFs? That's what it kind of comes down to for vector processing, right? So most follow the International Standard Organization, or you wouldn't be able to open it up in Revu. So printing would come down to file size management, processing for your viewports.
While I've got a couple seconds, I'm just going to go ahead and print this with the Bluebeam PDF driver. And we'll just call this one.
Now, does the add-in, since I don't use AutoCAD all that much, does the add-in give you the ability to print out layers?
I would have to open up an old version of Civil 3D and find out.
So
I don't have AutoCAD with Bluebeam added onto it.
The add-ins don't work for 23. And I'm assuming that's because Review 21 is going to come out and it's going to work for 21. And then plug into 23. Because if you look at the core support page, AutoCAD is only up to 2022 for them that it adds into. So let me open up mine. Because I have AutoCAD 20, I think.
And while you're opening that up, so here are the two files. So this one was the DWG to PDF, and this one was the Bluebeam one. So notice there is no layers in this Bluebeam one. But let's go up to document properties. So it was PDF produced by Bluebeam Brewery 5.0. It is 105 kilobytes. If I go over to this one, it was produced by PDF Plot HDI, and it is 135 kilobytes. So very minor difference in file size. Not a huge difference overall in the quality. It's still vector-based. Well, let's go take a look at this 5 being all goofy. See that? That 5 has got a weird sort of thing here. This 5's got a weird sort of thing there. That's an easy thing to cross-reference. Ooh, look at that.
Why don't you split pages and sync?
Yeah, let's do that. Do. Synchronized document already done. Oh, maybe it was just a fluke.
This is the same one. Go to
that's why.
Yeah.
Let's move this over here. So yeah, look at that. Interesting stuff.
Thin lines on. Thin lines are on right now. Oh, you want to see the, yeah.
They're both scaled.
Go to thin lines, yeah. You have to click the other one, yeah.
Look at that. So there's certainly some differences in that print driver and what it's doing to that font. This one's supposed to be better, right? Because we chose the AutoCAD and we exported that AutoCAD font, but look at how these are being handled.
So the font type, if you go to 20, there are some different settings. There is the general settings. You can transfer over hyperlinks, model and paper space, block attribute data, custom properties. And block attribute data would be for your custom stamps or your custom tool sets. You could see those data-driven information. Custom properties, and then use layout name as page label and SHX fonts.
Well, I'll be. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Oh, it made a mess on both sides of this one, but not only on one on there. That is quite curious. Again, this is why we want to use true type fonts and not some of this old AutoCAD stuff. So if you are ever looking at doing, new company standards and picking fonts and stuff like that, it's always best just to find something true type. It's going to make your life easier across the board when it comes to CAD standards.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for saying what I was going to say, Brian. But since you said it, I'm going to say that you said it. So if you're still using SHX fonts, you deserve to have messed up PDFs, right? True type is the way. So this is what you get, folks.
Hey, but I like the old style font, is what a reply would be.
Then you know what? It's time to move on. Go back to your flip phone. Go back to the old days. Go back to board drafting. We'll get out a Leroy machine. We'll do all those things. But just please use some True Type.
And then you'd hear the reply, I do have a flip phone.
Yeah, right. They'll come back. Don't you worry. Yeah. So this is an interesting little test. Again, I'm just using that AutoCAD default one, and I got weird results. So I'm going to go ahead and close this guy, and we'll go back to, we'll kill this Bluebeam one, and we'll just stick this, because we'll get back on topic of our layers.
Now, I've had an issue before because you do have the option of importing markups, and I tried figuring out a way to not print or export those markups, right? So you know, you can assign markups to layers and then try to print or not export them. I've had a hard time recreating that kind of workflow. Do we want to test it out here in the wild?
Sure. So we're talking about creating markups and putting those on a layer, right?
Yes.
So let's go ahead and jump in here, and I'll place some markups, right? So we'll just do our good old call out, and I'll say, make this rectangular. All right, so I have just a default call out. I'm not going to change any of the other properties here, but I will right click, and I'm going to go to layer. And here I can see that this is on layer none, or I can add it to one of these layers that came over from CAD, right? So I could, if there was an annotation layer or a call out layer, I could put it on that CAD layer. But instead, I'm going to create my own new layer. So I'm going to come over here to the bottom, go to create new layer. I'm going to call these Jason's markups. So talking about totally deviating from CAD standards, I just did my own, right? Fine. As a civil guy, I have to go back here. See, anno, whatever. We'll just put it on there.
See,
that makes me happy. Okay. So now I have a new layer. I should have a new layer down here at the bottom. See anno. And if I turn that off, ta-da, it goes away. I can choose if I want to print or export that. That's where things could get really, really odd, right? If I don't choose to print this, and if I make a new PDF, what do you think is going to happen? Well, let's go. It's probably best to leave it on print. That way you're not losing anything. So yeah, we can change that layer. I cannot change the colors of things through layers. I can change the colors of things through other properties, but I can't change a layer color like I could in AutoCAD. I can't freeze things like I can in AutoCAD. I can change the names of things, I'm guessing. If I double click, there you go.
What about right clicking?
Right click. We got a lot of options, and that's where we're going to head to next. Let's go find a layer that's got something on it. Ooh, look, this little duct. It's got this little weird symbol there. I've never seen that before in a drawing. Anybody know what that's supposed to mean besides 1M duct?
Is that a 90?
Yeah, weird. So if I right click on a layer name, I have the ability to show layer. And if I uncheck that, it's just the same thing as deselecting that little eyeball logo. Oh, David thinks it could be a damper. It could be. I've got one of those in my furnace room over there. All right, let's go back to right click. I can isolate this. So one of my favorite tricks from AutoCAD is isolating layers, right? If I isolate things, watch what happens. Ta-da! It turns off everything except for the layer that I have isolated, right? So I can see that I have a few of these things inside of this drawing. Now in AutoCAD, there's a way to unisolate, but here in Review, no, we have to go back to show all. So there are some things that are not quite the same. Turning veins, yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds like the best answer. So
yeah.
we're gonna
We'll leave it up to you folks
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
more well versed in that than us.
Thanks, Robert. You just named it a turning vein.
And
So you've got a
Stephanie said
turning
it as
vein.
well.
Yeah. So here we have markup layer. We've got add layer from page. We've got add new layer. Before, after, we got child layers, layer groups. There's a whole bunch of things in here that we could go dive into. Now, how many of you actually use this stuff? These are pretty rare. And I think that's not necessarily a good thing, right? Because there are a lot of great functionality, especially for us CAD folk who are used to working with layers for over the years. We forget that we still have that capability once that file comes over into PDF land. So if you wanted to, oh man, I printed this out, I forgot to turn this off before I printed it. Instead of going back into CAD, you can turn it off here, save it, move on. Don't forget to go back to CAD and fix it. But there's options for this, right?
Let's see, because what I want to know is, does this print feature actually work or not, or export markups, right? So in terms of, can I go and export my markups from one PDF to the next, but maybe there were some that were picked up, so we moved them onto a layer. Instead of deleting the markups, we're just going to not let them export.
Okay. So if I uncheck these two.
Yes.
So
let's do it for your markup.
Okay. I'll do it there too. Right. But I still want to see it, but it's not set to print. It's not set to export. And I did the same thing for this 4M duct. So if we zoom in here, this is actually pretty visible. See that right above the toilets there. I'll leave that on, but it won't be set to print or export. So when I export, what does that mean? Let's start there. If I go up to File and I go to Export, I can export as a PDF-A or archive it. I can export it as a JPEG. I can send it to Word, which isn't going to work very well. Excel is not going to work very well, but a JPEG might. Let's try this.
Okay.
It is not there. My markup is not there. So this is just a PDF or a JPEG now. I have no idea why you would want to create this. Maybe if you're doing like a slideshow and you wanted some screenshots, but good old Snagit is there for the win for that one.
So let's try the down from the markups list export.
So here's my markups list. Ooh, look at all this kind of garbage that came with it.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
So here's
that's all
my
that
call
font.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that is, isn't it?
Yep.
If I go to properties, what does that show up as? AutoCAD SHX font. See, as we're saying, if you use SHX fonts, you deserve this.
Yes.
Okay.
So export.
The notes drive me crazy. So yeah, down here is my call out. Make this rectangular. Here's that red one that I made it here earlier, right? So now if I go export my markups, it just really just shows up as a PDF file. Okay. Exported markups. Ignore my file extensions here today, everybody, because it's a Tuesday, but it feels like a Monday. So we're just.
Is that on your desktop?
Yeah.
Okay.
I learned it from you, Michael. Putting everything on your desktop. All right.
I was just making sure it went to your desktop, because I'll be the one that says, yeah, I went to my desktop, and now it's not on my desktop anymore.
Right. So here I'm going to open up my other PDF that I made. Right. Here's my Bluebeam one. That markup, that call out does not exist. No layers exist in this drawing either. Right. I'll go back to my markups list. It's completely empty, and I will go import markups. So I will go pull from my desktop, exported markups. Excuse me, what? What's this now? Not supported file type, or the file has been corrupted. For example, it was sent as an email attachment and wasn't correctly decoded. That's not true at all.
Hit okay.
You look perplexed there, Michael.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why we would have done that.
I'm not used to Bluebeam giving me errors. That's an Autodesk.
Go
thing.
back to the other one. I'm just going to. Never mind. I'm not going to.
Oh,
save.
was it because I didn't save it?
Yeah.
Let's save this thing. Now let's try this again. That could be. And we'll go ahead and overwrite wherever this garbage is. And we'll see if it works now. Survey says, nope. Okay. It wasn't correctly decoded.
I'm wondering if it's the font issue with those markups. So can you go back and just delete those?
Oh, all these?
Yeah, those. Yeah.
I don't know if I can.
Yeah, go up and hit shift. Yeah. Oh, you can't.
I can't delete them because they're embedded.
Are they locked?
You have to flatten them. Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, besides the SHX thing, again, this all goes back to me using a garbage file to start with. So my mantra is always garbage in, garbage out, especially when it comes to talking about civil survey stuff. But it's following us here in this mechanical plan. I can't delete anything. I would have to flatten it first and then go bring back my markup, which won't take long. We'll just go flatten this real quick. Yes.
But I wouldn't want to flatten all of my, can you do a shift flatten, right click flatten versus, because you're going to flatten your markup.
That's okay. I'll just make another one.
Okay.
It won't take long. Let's just grab everything. There we go. Now we got an empty markups list. That one was there. Let's go ahead and make another one super quick. Like,
you probably go to your tools chest and grab the same one and place it again.
Why? This is more fun. So there, export this. There we go. So that one's flattened. I can't select it. I can't do anything with it. This one I can, right? Markups list. I have one call out. Perfect. All right. Now, file.
Add it to layer. Add it to layer. Add to layer.
Oh, look at you reminding me. Right click, layer, and we'll add that to that CNO down at the bottom. There we go. Let's double check it. Perfect. It works. Oh, that's curious. This is flattened, but it's still on a layer. I wonder if that's intentional. All right.
Well, now you know.
Now you know, right? We'll save this PDF file. We'll go back, export markups. What is it called when you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result? All right. So we've exported that PDF of the markup. Now when I go back to this file, there's nothing in here. If I go try to import it, that's not it. It's over here. Still doesn't like it. So I'm guessing it had something to do with all the SHX fonts in there. Even though we flattened it, it's causing some issues.
I can do one if you want me to.
Well, let's see what you got then there, bud. The whole zoom controls are out of control.
Okay.
Einstein. Is that really Einstein's definition of crazy? I've heard it many times. I'd love to attribute it. Yet another wonderful thing to that brilliant, brilliant gentleman.
Always when we go through here, if you want an auto size text box, it's right here, or you have a preference for that. And then let's go and add this to a layer. We'll just create a new layer. Because what I really want is to know if this works from this.
Export. Oh, whoa. Now look at this. When I was exporting, it was doing a PDF file. when you're exporting, it's now doing a BAX file, which is proper. So I wonder what was going on there with my PDF. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to my world and I'll test this while you're doing your thing.
Okay. Save that to, so hold on. Did I save it to my desktop? I'm just going to hope I did. Yes. Okay. There we go. So then from here, what we'll do is we'll reopen the version here, which is not on my desktop. And then we'll import from my desktop, which was this morning, this file here. And see, it still comes over. So layers did not impact that export feature at all. It still exported it out. What if I don't show it and I export it?
Okay. My test did something really, really weird. So again, that Monday, Tuesday thing and that lack of caffeination is very much a factor in my planning here today. Michael, when you did yours, you were able to export a BAX file. When I was doing mine, it was defaulting to a PDF file. I went and changed mine to a BAX file and it imported fine with no errors. So operator error there, but the file did not come in, or the call out did not come in, but the layer did, and it still shows up in my markups list, but I can't turn it on.
So mine still comes over. This did not impact the export. So I'm assuming that these two are only meant for the file portion, which is print and export here. They do not impact this portion here, which is importing and exporting your markups, which I would hope that it did, but it does not. That was my hope.
Yeah, you can totally import, directly from a PDF. You don't have to export it, but what we're trying to do is test that export checkbox.
Yeah.
And there, it looks like there's certain workflows that enable or that are affected by that export checkbox, I should say.
And then going to your markups, you do have the option, and it is proper, I guess, standards that we would suggest, and most community folks would suggest as well, would be to add your markups to a custom layer already too. That way you can turn them on and off. So if you have a tool set, maybe name the layer the tool set, but any custom markup in your tool set itself, you can right click and create a layer for it. I would just highly recommend doing the Control-C, because you can't select a layer named, right? So for this instance, if I'm going to right click and add this to a layer, it doesn't suggest to the layers that are from the PDF. It's you're creating a layer, and you probably want to have it abbreviated the same incorrectly, because if not, it's going to add two different layers and be on a completely different layer. So just be aware of that when you're going through and creating layers for your markups. The other portion is going through and adding a PDF to a layer, or adding a PDF into a layer that's already existing. So you can add a layer from a page. So you have the ability to import a layer from another page, or you can insert a layer from a page too. So you can bring a whole PDF in as a layer. Another way to do that was it under view? Insert, and then you have layered pages too. So there's a couple of different ways to go about doing this. I was just doing this earlier because I had wondered about that. So you can go through, and we'll just bring in the store schedule and open it up. And what this is doing is it's bringing this PDF on top of another PDF. So if you ever wanted to maybe not do the overlay portion, but just bring a whole nother PDF layered to multidiscipline, for instance, right? You want to see what the MEP is going to look like, the site will look like on this PDF, the structure. I don't know how I forgot structure, right? On this architectural set, you can go through and do that this way by layering them on top of one another, and you can colorize them if you wanted to. We'll just hit OK. and they're completely different. But the title blocks aren't. Maybe the data in them. Oh, no, they are completely different. Never mind. But we can see that the outline for the title block is there too.
That looks like every architectural plan to me anyway. Isn't that how you normally do things?
Hey,
Anyway.
I'm not on that side, so you can dog all you want. But yeah, so you can go through here and you can turn things on and off as you look at these as well.
Pretty fancy. So when you were doing that layer and you were right clicking, there was an option for markup layer. What does that do?
Going to import right here. Nope.
Right click.
Okay.
Markup layer, fourth one down. Oh, so it just lets you know. Interesting.
So markups added to this document for this session will be assigned to layer blank. Okay. Markups with pre-existing layer assignments will not be affected. Oh, it's to quickly add markups to an entire layer of that PDF itself.
This is like setting a layer current in AutoCAD, right? So if you set your layer current, everything that you draw will stay on that layer while that layer is current. So this is essentially doing the same thing. Is you create a layer like I did that cyano, and I called that my markup layer. Every markup I added after that point would be on that cyano layer, right? So this would allow you to do the same thing. Pretty interesting stuff. I can't say I've ever utilized that function. That's why I asked you to do it.
Yes, and you can import your markups not as a BAX file. They could be from another PDF. So for instance, I have markups from an older PDF set here. I have both the BAX, but you can also just import them as a .pdf extension. So you just don't hit the export feature like Jason and I did, right? You just go to the older PDF wherever it lives, and you just hit open, and it'll bring them in. So you don't have to export as a BAX file, but you can. And look at that current layer, it gives you the icon for it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I wonder if you could double click the other one, if it will do the same thing. No. Yeah. Interesting. And that import thing didn't work for mine when I had that issue, because I had that, I had exported that markup as a PDF, right, instead of the BAX, and I tried doing the same thing, bringing it over, and it gives me the same error message. So that BAX export is probably the best practice still.
Okay. What else for layers?
So there are ways to do layer templates in here, and
yes,
it's kind of weird. Sometimes I struggle, again, coming from the CAD side, where layers mean a whole heck of a lot. Coming over here in the PDF world, like, why would I want to be creating all these layers at the same time? Why wouldn't I just use my toolbox or my tool chest that's already set up with all of my proper subjects and comments? Because that's a similar way to organize things, right?
Oh, instead of having layers to turn on and off, because it really doesn't limit your exporting features. It's just maybe a print style, right? We don't want things to print. I guess it could be the ability to help you hide things here. And also kind of old habits die hard. Would you agree with that?
Oh, certainly.
Because you are right. We do get a lot from if you had best practices with your subject matter and information in your markups list, you can organize, filter, and store your data here. But the one thing that you don't get from your markups list that you do get from your layers is this, right? You don't get that here. It's either all or none.
Or if you filter.
But you still see them, they're grayed. That's the only downside.
Very true. So that's a good point. Let's dive into that. So if you do a filter, right, and you just want to show like your engineer comments, for example, right? Easy to filter. If you're in review 20, you've got all of that set up, and all of your engineer comments will be bold and everything else will be sort of grayed out. So if you zoom in, you should be able to still see them. There you go. So the engineer comments are there in blue, it looks like. And everything else is gray. They're still cluttering up the page. So layers would help with that.
Yep. What else about layers? Because I know there was a question in the Q&A. I sent over some support stuff, but I would like to show you all a little bit about the forms and creation of custom stamps.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. I was looking at the Brian's question in the Q&A.
Yeah. And I'm
We still
assuming
need to-
Brian's still here. Yeah. Okay.
We still need to bring in Liz.
Yes.
There was a
Or yeah, and is Liz here? If she's not here, also anybody, if anyone's familiar, I guess, with JavaScripting, anyone that wants to attend.
yeah. We've been wanting to do a JavaScript episode. It's not our strong suit, but Liz Larson, if you've seen her out there on YouTube, she's making awesome content, or LinkedIn rather. And she taught a class on JavaScript last year at the Bluebeam Extreme Conference. So that might be out there somewhere.
And hers was for exporting
Yeah.
emails. I think it was like emails or something like that.
Yeah, she had some cool stuff. So there are other resources for JavaScript that we'd like to dig into as it relates to Bluebeam Review, right? Because JavaScript is a whole big scary world. But when we're talking about making stamps and forms and some of the other things that you can do with that, the email templates, it'd be really nice to have a little bit of JavaScript in my toolbox.
Yeah, because you do have the JavaScript window if you have Extreme for now.
Ooh, I was wondering how long it was going to take you to drop in a teaser.
So for JavaScripting, you do have that option to go through because it is open source for it, and you can do additional things. But let's finish out this because we don't want to squirrel right now. Is there any other questions around layers in terms of, or what else did you have planned for layers, Jason?
I think you covered them all. Can you hit that? Well, we could talk about the child layers real quick.
Okay.
Because the parent-child thing in Civil 3D means something totally different to me. So when I think about child layers here in Review, it's kind of a weird thing. I'm trying to find a good use case for it.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
It's not like the child views where you can use it as a sub tab for bookmarks, where something can be below, or a hyperlink to jump you to a different location, like a detail, for instance, right? Like I would go through my thumbnails, create the page layouts, and then on my detail page, I'd have sub bookmarks for those under a child view. I don't know what I would use a child view for layers. Maybe you have your overall arcing PDF layer, and then below that is some subsets of the layers in there. Maybe, I don't know. Because you can turn them all off or certain ones on the PDF off.
Correct.
That could be a use.
Yeah,
What do you
I suppose. How about you there, community? Anybody else use the child layers ever? You got a good, compelling reason to give them a whirl? All right. Guess not. We'll see.
Cool.
We don't use layers. All right. All right. So we've covered layers. We've covered the basics of what we wanted to show. If you haven't used layers coming from AutoCAD, we walked through that and using that DWG to PDF plot driver. And then we created some new layers. We imported some layers, did some other things like that. Notice that the layer is also, but wait, I'm speaking out of turn here. Is there a way to show the layer in the markups list in a column?
Yes.
That's what I thought. But it's one of those things where, layer, second from the bottom. There we go. Yeah. So you can, you could filter that way too. And then it would gray everything out.
Yeah.
So yeah, your layer will appear in the markups list if you have that column set to display.
Was there a question?
Nope.
Okay. So let's go through and talk about our stamps. Now you can go to the out of the box area to download custom stamps from the libraries of here, from Bluebeam.
They're not open yet to take down the message.
Oh. We're open. So our support is here if you are purchasing your review solution through us to help you as well. So let me put this there for everyone. But you can go to here and grab some of these custom stamps. Now, the question comes about with creating custom stamps. You could do a markup that has form fields that allow you to be more modular in selecting checkboxes like things in here. But if you wanted something, when you grab those, what will happen is they populate open with a JavaScript window for you to fill in data, right? So if I go and click this stamp, it's going to give me this window, which is data driven by forms to fill out the data when the stamp is then placed, such as discipline. What discipline do I want this to be? Who's it checked by? The date, right? And it fills in this data here for you automatically. Now, what you can do without having Extreme and knowing forms is you can go into your tools. I can go into this and I can change, the logo to say something different, like our company logo or some of this naming convention. But what is hard to work with if we don't know JavaScripting and how these are created is the form fields. Because what these are driven from are forms, which are going to tools. You're then going to your forms and creating a text box, right? That's all good and dandy. Now, if I go over to here and I go show and I go to forms, I have my form driven data here, right? Now, this form driven data is controlled by going to tools. From tools, you then can go to your forms and JavaScript in your stamp. Now, in your stamp window, here's the source code that's controlling your form data, right? So the form field was created, such as this box here. So if I click on this one here, I can go to my discipline. This box was created, was right-clicked, renamed, so that when it was given a code-driven parameter from your form data in your script line, it can control it when it's inputted. But what this is doing is it's going through, and I'm not versed at all in JavaScripting, but scripting in general, kind of reading line item by line item, we can understand what's happening here, right? You have the ability for it to pop up your window, and then it gives you your assignments for those, right? So it's looking for your list group of discipline. So it's grabbing the discipline here. And if it's saying yes, no, or not, these are your selection items for those.
So you could easily change instruments to structural, for example, or change, piping to architectural or whatever, and make those edits fairly straightforward without understanding what all the plus minus stuff is doing.
Yes, but make sure anything with doing source coding and any kind of scripted lines is if you're a space off or an integer off, it's not going to work. So there's no like kickback in this saying, hey, well, I guess it's when you're finally done. It's like, hey, it doesn't work. But there's no kickback of, hey, you need to add a 0, you need to add a 1, or you need to add a space. There's no response back that you're doing something incorrectly. You just have to hope you're doing it correctly, or you have to rewrite it all, which is welcome to scripting world. What else?
And it's kind of scary, but this one isn't so bad. But still, I have so many questions. So yeah, if you have Review Extreme, you should be able to get in here and play around with this stuff. If you don't, well, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, you can get Extreme.
You can.
Yeah. But this is how you can go through and customize your stamps. And stamps are seen as .pdf extensions. And and you're just using the form-driven data to input that information here.
So yeah.
Great.
Yeah, this is worth checking out. Obviously, these stamps are pretty easy to edit, and Michael posted the link in the chat for you to download if you want to go play with some of these. They're pretty darn handy.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I've seen other people do a workaround just because they don't know JavaScripting, and it's just creating a markup, right? That has form-driven data. It's all grouped together, so they can still put a checkbox. They can still type in the information. That could be a use case where you have a checkbox. It's just created in as a full custom markup that you just drop and play, right? That's another way if you're not well versed in JavaScripting. But you still have to know, you still have to have forms, which is an extreme feature, to create that grouping. Now, if you're sending that markup to someone else to check on and off, right, it still works because you don't need extreme to input form-driven data. You just need extreme to create the form fields, if that makes sense.
Oh, forms.
Okay. Now, does anyone have any other items of question for us?
And while those questions come in, I want to mention that we're all about building community here. So if you've got, if you learned something from any of our shows, or you've shared your links with your coworkers or whatever, thank you. Drop a like and subscribe down there on YouTube land. Tag us in a hashtag if you're sharing tips on LinkedIn or something. That would be cool. And also, since Brian's here, Brian, can you toss in a link to your civil chat? I know there's a couple. I can't be the only civil person here. But if there's any other civil folks on the line, Brian do an amazing civil 3D related podcast type thing. Is it once a month these days, Brian? Check it out. And it also links to Revit information with Brian Mackey as well. So
whoa, look at that.
Yeah.
Revit information.
I said Revit way too many times today. I think I'm flipping out a little bit. So definitely lack of caffeine on my part. So first Tuesday of each month, which would be next Tuesday. And next Tuesday, you're not going to want to miss morning coffee review either. So we'll just say that.
What's next Tuesday, Jason? Wait,
Well,
do we want to put out a teaser or not until
I'm just saying that us on the Bluebeam Platinum partner side of things are going to learn a bunch of things tomorrow that will be public information. And next Tuesday would be our first opportunity to get together around the morning coffee review, break room and talk about some teasers about Super Ultra Mega.
Yeah, we'll probably have more of like a round table where we bring up some type of page and show some type of representation of what it is.
Yeah. Didn't know we were in the company of that caliber of experts. Oh, come on, Beth.
Yeah.
We're building that community. We're just tying the room back together. All right. We got a good question here from, I'm going to call you my neighbor, Jill, since Jill is probably within a 10-mile radius of me.
Okay.
She's got a question here. Can a shape be cut out of a larger shape that has a semi-transparent color? I want to use this to highlight areas of a PDF.
So I did that thing again, Jason, where I was drinking coffee and I tuned you out. So can you say it again?
So can a shape be cut out of a larger shape that has a semi-transparent color? I would use this to highlight areas of a PDF.
So I know you can cut out a measurement, but I've never cut out from we'll just say a rectangle for this instance, right? Because we're saying it has a fill.
It kind of sounds like a Rev cloud, but you change the cloud to a line. And maybe that.
And then what?
I don't know.
So let me go to here, revision cloud, and then we're changing this into a line. And then we're cutting from what?
Well, you'd make the outside
fill.
a little fill, yeah. And then you'd make that transparent. And then you could adjust your border. Is that getting close, Jill?
I think a cutout is what they want.
Cut out a portion of the interior colored space. Oh, so you still want an opening there. I don't know. Like a donut. Donuts. That's a fine question. Maybe that could be a group job.
We could do this. There's your cutout.
So you can do a measurement markup, then fill in the cutout. Okay.
I mean, that there are cutouts from this, right? The measurement, because you're cutting from the space of what you wanted to subtract space. You can cut from these, but I haven't seen the ability to cut from a markup, right? Because it's more of a conceptual tool. So maybe this would have to happen where I'm showing a white item.
Ooh, man, this is got some good suggestions coming in here. So Alex says we use poly regions where the line is continuous, but because the border is on top of one another, there is no extra filled in region. Okay. And then we've got flatten, snapshot, change white color to transparent. That could work. And then once that's done, well, I suppose if it's flattened, you couldn't. But obviously, once you get this figured out, add it to a tool chest, drops it all in. Maybe I'll play with this more today.
Yeah, I mean, if you flatten, you could cut content, right? That's what someone was suggesting too. Mine was an overwritten, just another markup stacked on top of the other one with the white background. And if you have an odd color PDF, by the way, you can just do this, which is, what's that? Thank you. You can get painted from that color.
Sneaky devil.
What else?
Area measurement tool with a cutout is what I use. Alex learned that at last year's Extreme conference.
Yeah.
So last year was XCon Everywhere, which was live streamed. This year, it's going to be in person in San Diego, August 23rd and 24th. And Michael and I will see you there. So hopefully the registration information opens up real soon so you can see all the classes. It's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, we'll be there. We're going to be teaching. What are we going to be teaching, Jason?
A class about stuff.
About instructing and
about
training internally. How can
corporate
you
training
that?
programs and all sorts of things. But ATG will be there in some form as a sponsor as well. So we'll have some fun. That is true. So we got just a couple minutes left if there's any last minute questions. Doug's working on his presentation, which will be lots of Excel. And I'm going to become an Excel master after attending that.
Go, Doug.
There will be payback for all of the heckling you've done here over the years here too. So fair warning. I'm going to bring a Nerf gun. It's going to be, it's fun. All right. So yeah, we'll play with this markup. Jill's got us a little bit stumped here. So thank you for that. Carson's got another suggestion. Single shape, then leave a channel bridge to the donut hole. Yeah, it's possible. I'll play with this today and we'll show it off next week, Tuesday morning. And
recap.
Yeah, we'll do a little recap. Doug said he's open to the Nerf wars. So maybe, I don't know how that will work for TSA and flying.
We probably pick some up there. Just won't make it home with them.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today on the last day of May. We will see you next week, Tuesday, 8:30 Central. As always, bring your questions. When you log out of Zoom, you will get a survey. Type in any questions, any future topics you want us to cover. Give us a review and we'll go from there.
Yep.
Until then,
and we look forward to seeing you and talking about Mega Ultra next week, hopefully, and covering more questions if you have around that.
Yep. So you won't want to miss next week for sure.
Yep.